Dilshad Burman, I have you in my chair. We are switching places for once.
Yes, yes, very surreal for me.
Oh my gosh, you know, I have so many questions that I want to ask you.
Shoot.
And I've got to go right back to the beginning to, you know, when you were in Mumbai, you were born and bred a Mumbai girl.
Yes.
And then there's this like whole story associated with how you decided to actually drop everything and come to a country where you knew no one to pursue your dream in media.
Yes.
So before we get there, let's talk about when you were younger. Where did all that come from for you?
Okay, my mom will tell you I was like born on stage, which is a kind of odd thought when you think about it, but I've been on stage since I was about 2.5, 3. I feel like I remember the first, I was in nursery school and they put me up on stage with a chorus. And I remember only seeing my mother in the audience. I refused to acknowledge anybody else. And that's literally where it started. I have been on stage singing, acting, dancing, whatever they would let me do, I did, you know, and it went from there, it went all through university. I majored in English literature, so theater came along with that. I went from acting to set design to direction to writing to everything. And theater was my life in Bombay, and it was amazing. And so I feel like it was always in me, that little performer, like nautanki we say, you know, in Hindi, like it was just always there. So I don't know where it came from. I guess it kind of came from my mother.
The interesting thing for me is that, you know, you had all this going on in Mumbai, but you decided to drop it all and come to a country, I mean, that you knew no one, and you had no hookups in, you know, getting into the industry.
No.
How did that thought come about for you? Did you just like close your eyes and like roll the map? And
I don't know. I always question that decision every day. Sometimes I just like, what am I doing here? And why is my mom not here? Because I was my mother's shadow growing up. We're very, very close. My family is very, very tight knit. So to just up and decide to leave, I didn't leave for anything, really. I have an amazing, I go back now. Like I have an amazing family. They're extremely, extremely supportive. They're really sweet. And so there's nothing that really, you know, some people like get driven away, you know, from their home.
You don't have that horror story.
Not at all. Like, I mean, honestly, it's such a silly thing. And really, there was a part of me wondering, why am I giving all, it's a cushy life in India, honestly. Like, pretty much everybody grows up with nannies and maids, and you don't have to do your dishes. And honestly, the bane of my life is dishes. So, you know, there was no reason to leave except that all through my school career and university, I wanted to study. I want to study now, you know. So it came to a point where I was finishing university, but I wasn't ready to finish.
Right.
And I wanted to experience an education system that wasn't, for lack of a better word, like as oppressive as the Indian system. The Indian system is extremely difficult. There's a lot of emphasis on memorization. And you don't really you almost feel like you don't come out learning anything. And that's kind of why I took up English literature, because English literature to a certain extent really allows you to explore sides of your brain that other subjects and studying other subjects in India doesn't.
Because it's very perspective based as well, right?
Yes, and for the most part there are no wrong answers.
Right.
But still, when it comes down to exams, you still have to quote that critic and that particular thing, and if you don't get that, you don't get your marks.
Right.
And so I figured I wanted to experience a system that was more rewarding.
Right.
And I had heard all these wonderful stories that anywhere abroad is better. And so we discussed the UK. I have solid family in the UK. We discussed the US. And then just in terms of the courses that were being offered and the finances and the way they worked out, Canada seemed to be the best option. And Fanshawe College was offering this brilliant course in broadcast television.
So I want to stop you there. Why broadcast television when up to this point you've talked about the, you know, the performing arts, theatre, English literature, dancing. So how did you get there?
So I worked in radio in India for a short time. Radio was really big at the time. They had just opened it up. Earlier it used to be only government run. And then all of a sudden they were giving out private licenses, and so these cool young radio stations came up, and I was like, yes, let's do radio, why not? Whatever. So, and I loved radio. It was amazing, and I did a lot of production for that, and I got into radio editing that way. And that just something went in my head. I was like, I love this. I love technology. I don't know why. I love technology. I love working with computers. I love doing all this behind the scenes stuff. And it was the funnest time. That kind of got me thinking along the lines of media. And then when it came to choosing, I was like, I like visual mediums.
Right,
you know, I like painting, I like drawing, I like doing all this stuff. So I said, sure, let's do this. Let's take what you like in media, let's apply it to television. And so we picked television, but I picked television production.
Right.
I picked broadcasting.
You know, it's really interesting that you say that because, you know, shortly thereafter, one of your first gigs was working at Westbury National.
Yes.
Which, for those people that don't know what that is, it's an entire production,
yes.
You know, house
yes.
that actually puts on small to the largest shows.
Yes, and they are actually responsible for the lights on the CN Tower.
Right,
That's
exactly,
them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to do, you know, the behind the scenes stuff?
That was really, I mean, there was so many things that came together, and it was circumstances, because I came out of Fanshawe as an international student. Not many people know this, but at the time, for international students, they make it extremely hard for you to stay in the country. The rules are, get a job in your field of study in 3 months of leaving school, and it has to be full-time.
Wow.
I studied television.
Yeah.
You cannot find a full-time job in television with 5, 10, 15 years of experience.
Right.
I'm a kid out of school. Who is giving me a job?
So you made a strategic decision here.
I made a decision that I wanted a job and I wanted to stay in Canada.
Right.
And that was it, you
right.
know. And I found Westbury, and they were willing to take a chance on this kid, you know. I was basically just an immigrant kid. I didn't know what I was doing. And I had some video training and I had some television training, obviously, from school. And they decided that, you know, if you can do video,
right.
you can be in our department. That we have a whole video department that deals with cameras and other kinds of equipment that you might be familiar with. I was like, cool, let's do that. You know, so I actually bugged them for a while. It was like a week or so, and
I can believe that about you.
I had that little zeal, you know, and I was like, no, like it's 3 months are coming up, like I gotta get this job. And so I bugged the labor coordinator, Cheryl, for quite a bit, and then she called me in for a meeting and we talked. And as they were explaining the job to me, I started getting scared because I was like, this is all there is, right? Like there's some women that are tiny and really strong, and I'm not one of them. It's not happening. You know, this is all there is. I'm not hiding anything. These are the muscles. Like there was nothing. And they started telling me that it's this heavy lifting job,
right.
and you got to set up projectors and screens and all this stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm not afraid of hard work. I will do it as long as there's somebody to help. And like I can't really lift weights, but they taught me how to lift and everything. I still hurt myself. There's just some physical things that you can't get over, and being a small framed woman is one of them. Like you just, there's nothing you can do about that.
But you still did it.
I did it.
I've got to give you props for that.
I had several pairs of steel-toed boots. I still have my hard hat. Thanks to them, I will never need anybody to set up my DVD player. I do it from scratch. DVD player, anything TV related, I will hook up by myself. I learned how to do camera work with them. And I learned how to run signal. I learned the intricacies of, you know, what it takes to put on this giant show. But, you know, it's what you have to do, and they gave me my visa that way, and I got to stay in the country, and that's how it goes,
And thank God you did, because otherwise we wouldn't have you as the fabulous host of VMix
That's right,
on
yes.
OMNI. Great show. First time ever there's been a South Asian music show
yes.
nationwide in Canada.
Yes.
That, you know, talks not just about, you know, the various genres of music that our community is participating in,
yes.
but also the mainstream. I mean, you guys do it all.
Yes.
How did you go? Okay, so you went from behind the scenes to in front of the camera. How did that happen?
It was gradual, because while I was working at Westbury, I mean, ultimately, as much as it was, you know, an amazing experience and a learning experience, it came to a point where I wasn't in a good place mentally or physically. Like it just wasn't what I came to Canada to do. You know, we didn't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on an education to have on a television education. You know, to have to do what I was doing ultimately. So I got back in touch with OMNI Television. I had interned with them as soon as I finished school for a little while, and luckily, apparently, I made an impression. I don't know. And the edit supervisor was like, "Come on back. You know, you can train with us, it's totally fine." And at the time, finally, the visa restrictions had opened up and I was allowed to freelance.
Is that when you got the IIFA gig?
Close, yes.
Right.
So when the IIFAs came along and they said, you know, we need more reporters and we need more people to help out, I was like, I'm there, let's do this, you know. And I was doing 8-hour shifts of editing, and then I would stay late, like how many hours it took to do stories for them but I loved it all.
Right.
You know, and then they said, okay, so now you've done all these stories and, you know, we need an extra person on the carpet, or I don't know if it was extra, I don't know what happened behind the scenes to put me at that spot on the IIFA Greens carpets. And it was the first spot when the stars come out of their limos and, you know, it's like a moth to a flame. They see a camera and they go right to it.
Right.
I wasn't supposed to talk to the stars. Nobody knows this.
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to talk. I was supposed to be with the fans. I was supposed to be having fun. There was no pressure on me.
Well, I think it helps when you're a cute little button like you are.
Well, you know, maybe. You know, go on. But, but you know, I don't know what it was. And I really did have a good time with the fans. They were adorable. By the end of it, they were chanting my name. It was great. It was great, you know. But yeah, they just kept flocking to me, and I was like, well, when you know, Shah Rukh Khan comes to your camera, you ask him a question.
Right.
You know, you don't be like, no, go, you know. Just,
so how did you feel about that? Because, you know, obviously you weren't prepped for, you know, the whole one-on-one with the stars, but then when they started to resonate towards you, did you start quickly, you know, flipping gears in your headspace?
No, I just went with it.
Yeah.
I have now when I watch that broadcast back, I'm like, I don't know how those words are coming out of my mouth. I don't know what was coming out of my mouth. I was just hoping I wasn't swearing, you know. And it's a good thing that I don't normally, so that's great.
But I think that's probably what, you know, caught the eye of the executives at Omni, that they realized, okay, you know, here's a girl that we haven't like actually quote unquote trained on camera. We threw her into the pit.
That was my first television experience.
Exactly.
That was it. Yeah.
And then they probably thought, you know what? We've got a few shows that are coming down the pike. Maybe we'll give her a chance. And they did.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, VMix came about.
And even that, I had no idea. After the IIFAs, I went right back to editing, right back to loving the life I was living.
Yeah.
And all this while, this was brewing in the background. You know, Raul Juneja was working with Omni for several years developing this thing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And then October rolled around, which was a few months after the IIFAs, and they said, you know, we're doing this.
How did you feel when, oh my gosh, you know, this wasn't really on your radar per se, because as you mentioned, you were so happy, you know, in the realm of the video world, right? And all of a sudden, this dream that actually brought you to Canada, where you wanted to be live on camera, is being offered in some capacity. What happened to you in that moment when they says, we're giving you this gig as the main host?
I was in shock. I didn't know what was happening. And at the same time, it was such a weird time in my life because I had been freelance editing with Omni. And so, you know, the idea when you're freelance editing is always to get that full-time job, always get that stability. And Omni and City, you know, are in the same building and are both Rogers properties. City TV was hiring a full-time editor at the time. So they offered me VMix, and they offered me a full-time editing job in the same week.
Wow.
And I said yes to both.
So how did that come about?
So it just did, and I said yes to both, and I worked as a full-time editor and a part-time TV host for 2 and something years.
Wow.
Burned the candle at both ends.
But that's a really smart move.
It is a smart move
because it's a career move as opposed to a spontaneous, you know, putting all your eggs in one basket kind of move.
And honestly, VMix, you know, we didn't know what was going to happen. Like you said, it's first of its kind. We don't know if it's going to catch. We don't know if it's going to stay. And so, and it was part-time. So it was like, you know, you still got to feed yourself. You still got to do what you do. And I love editing.
Yes.
You know, there's no part of it I dislike. So I took that as a stable, good job. And then I said, yeah, I'm going to still do this. And that, honestly, that was the dream. To be able to do the editing and to be on camera was amazing. And now, you know, over time, things have changed. I went back to being freelance with City TV for a very long time. And now VMix we've taken on more responsibility. We've taken on sort of ownership of exactly where the show is going. And so now it's my life. And whether or not I knew it at the time, this is the dream.
Yeah, this is the dream.
This is the dream.
Talk to me about this dream. I mean, VMix, from the early days to where it's morphed into now, you know, it's an incredibly eclectic collection of, you know, thoughts and ideas that come together from all genres of music. This show definitely is a really important part of, you know, our pop cultural heritage here in Canada.
Yeah.
I think you're so totally awesome on it.
Thank
I think
you.
you're the perfect, cute little personality to host that kind of a, you know, a show. Tell me, what it is that it's morphed into for you since its you know, initial broadcast a number of years ago?
You know, I say this a lot, but when it started, it was the little show that could, and we were trying, and we weren't sure, and they told us, you have a summer run, go for the summer. And then we went for the summer, and then they didn't tell us to stop. So then we became the little show that can, you know, and we just kept going, and now we're kind of the little show that's doing it,
right,
you know,
right.
And hopefully we'll keep doing it, you know. So it really went from kind of this very small, very, you know, indie kind of thing, and we pride ourselves on that. We pride ourselves on being indie, on supporting independent musicians. But then little by little, there was bigger names coming on the show, and we started landing bigger and bigger interviews. We started landing interviews that were outside of our community, but still very much a part of the Canadian community. That's really kind of what it's about, because a lot of the artists, the younger ones, the indie ones, as much as we are proud of being South Asian, as much as they are proud of their heritage, they're also saying, you know, I'm just a singer that happens to be South Asian, you know. And yes, I bring in elements of that, but I also bring in elements of being Canadian. And what is being, you know, being Canadian is like is a multicultural identity for so many people. So it really has sort of expanded for us now into just including multiculturalism.
You're on the list, the Anoki List 2015. I'm super happy that, you know, you made the list this year out of 32 people that, you know, we actually felt were really doing great things in various capacities. We wanted to honor them. Yeah. And this is the first time coffee table book.
Yes.
And you're in it. How did it feel when you were told that you were going to be one of the people being honored in that capacity?
I think the correct expression is laugh cry. I was just freaking out. I didn't know what. I'm a minute old in this industry. It really took me by surprise. I had no idea. And then I told my mom, and I said, you know, I'm going to be in this book. And she's like, what do you mean you're going to be in a book? And I was like, they're doing this thing. There's like this thing in a book. And she started freaking out. And so she's, of course, extremely proud. And I think that I'm kind of living all of those things vicariously through all the people that tell me how happy they are for me and how proud they are for me, because for me it's just outside of my body. Right. Like I don't know what's happening.
But it's good to keep it there because it'll keep you humble and you'll never stagnate and you'll constantly be, you know, looking for that next great thing that you want to actually have as part of your life's adventure. I've always been a firm believer that every single tiny step we take is in itself a success story.
Absolutely.
And you know, your very small time in the industry has garnered you a great deal of experience, and you've done a tremendous job.
Thank you.
You know, with vMix. We love you here at Anoki. I thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And I look forward to all the great things that are going to happen in the future for you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.